Ranchers. I have made it a, a point in when I have been bringing you Mindfulness with Marsha messages to try the best I can to weave my personal experiences with mindfulness and the topic, not in any way to be an expert, because I'm far from that in so many areas of my life and even in mindfulness, but to bring relevance and something more personal rather than just saying, hey, here's a link and go read this, in the web. And so I'm going to try the best I can in the next few weeks to bring to you messages that are somewhat connected to mindful living and dealing with this new reality of COVID-19 pandemic. To a certain degree, right now with the COVID-19 pandemic, we may be relying on other people's accounts of facts and reality to inform us on a day-to-day basis. I know in my family, I have my mom who literally has, whether it's CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, I think she rolls from one to another on 24/7. And while we're hearing people, experts, doctors, mental health therapists say that our nervous systems and our bodies need to have some breaks at times from that just constant barrage of information, especially when it's not all good news, for heaven's sakes. There's also some things we need to be considering in that we still want to be informed. We want to be able to get information as quickly as possible. I know many people, including myself, either tape or if we're available, our governor's addresses at 4 o'clock, his press conferences. So, getting information happened before COVID too. We can't all be, for example, molecular physicists, but we can benefit from taking their findings to heart and deciding for ourselves if the information we're reading is true or not. And with our new social media, it's very clear this is becoming more and more difficult. But in the same way that we look to teachers and governmental leaders, community folks, our spiritual leaders to tell us how to understand or maybe interpret what's going on around us, this is happening now also. And while this input, if you want to say, of experts, well, it is valuable. Undeniably, it's valuable. But our own sense of truth is also ultimately an important piece in processing the information that we're taking in from these external sources. And in the end, we are the authorities of our own lives. And we have the final say on whether something is generally held as truth for us and letting that settle in ourselves. And we know sometimes what is true for someone else may absolutely be false, but they hold on to it wholeheartedly. So I'm not going to get in a discourse here over, well, what about people who are obviously wrong or have different ideas than me? I'm really focusing in mindful living on what can we do for ourselves in kind of maneuvering through this quagmire of information that is changing literally minute by minute sometimes. We only need to take a brief look at history to remember that religious and scientific and political establishments that ruled the day, well, at some point they were all wrong. And that's the beauty of learning, of experiencing new and evolving. I know for myself as superintendent here and vice president of education, trying to take in what I believe is fact and and then share that out so that we can have good experiences for our students in learning now has been extremely difficult. And I have to allow myself and those who are working with me some grace in knowing that we're not going to get it right all the time. And when we don't, there lies that mindful presence or acknowledgement that we can learn and experience something new and evolve. Now, while we sometimes wish we could just let somebody else decide, let somebody else decide for us what's really true. Right now, it's clearly not a viable option. And if you feel it is, please email me because I would need some help in this area. But this new reality is that the facts and knowledge just keep changing. Like I mentioned, almost minute by minute. And just when you think you've settled down inside your body and in your mind, and something else, it's like, I think I need to move. I need to change. I need to relook at that. So remember, for mindful living, the good news, the really good news, is that we can confidently devote ourselves to making up our own minds about reality. And we take in everything that's handed to us at any one moment, but not to take everything that's handed to us as the ultimate truth. I think right now we really, as we have in the past, but right now maybe it's more important that there isn't an ultimate truth of, let's say, the data of whether or not COVID virus is contagious once you've had it once. We might have to take some of these facts with a grain of salt and realize that we're learning so much about this crazy virus and what we need to do going forward. Now, truly, it doesn't mean that we discount information that we're receiving from outside sources. If I discounted everything that I'm learning from my educational sources, for example, I'd be paralyzed. I couldn't lead anybody, and I would be paralyzed myself. No, what do I do? What do I do? And the anxiety and stress would just be I don't know that I could handle that. So I do have to take in information from outside sources, but it simply means that I'm more vigilant. I'm vigilant to ask questions, to decide whether or not I agree with it, to decide whether or not that seems to be in line what I just learned a moment ago or yesterday or the week before. All the information that you and I receive right now is useful in the process of making up our own minds. So to make this personal, this weekend, I deliberately allowed myself time to sit with all things COVID that I had recently learned. Because during the week, I was hearing and trying to decide and working with other people, and we didn't have a lot of answers, but we had to make decisions. And I really was just going from one thing to another. And I was feeling the stress of just not sitting with all things COVID for myself. And what I had recently learned, and measuring all that stuff alongside my own inner sense of truth and my own experiences. And while I've never had any experiences, just like you with COVID-19, I had to spend some time with what was similar, what could maybe I take from a past experience and apply it now. And I found myself, friends, making up my own mind and kind of settling. It was a settling feeling of how to be comfortable right now. And I have to tell you, it brought peace to the process. And I literally could feel, especially I hold a lot of tension and I tend to get all bound up in my shoulders. I could literally feel, as I focused on where my truth lied and what I was going to believe in right now, my body softened. My shoulders drop and soften. And today I can share with you that I feel stronger, a little smarter, and more engaged as a human being. So this week for the pause, I want you to spend some time reflecting on your reality of COVID-19 if you haven't been able to do such yet. But remember, allow yourself a big amount of grace because you'll need that in these changing waters as you settle and you think you've got it, and then you learn and you realize that you got to shift. Until then, of course, keep washing your hands, maintain that social distance, and in all things, be well.